I'm going to show you how to create a form in MailerLite. I'm going to start with an embedded form. So once you're logged in, you already have your account set up, you're ready to roll. You first log in, you'll be looking at the dashboard. I'm in the Forms section. From the main navigation bar, just click Forms. And I'm going to do an embedded form. On the right-hand side, click on the orange Create Embedded Form. I'm going to enter a name for my form. Click Save and Continue. You have to choose the group for which the person subscribing through the form will be assigned. I'm going to create a brand new group for that purpose with the Add New Group button. Call that Demo Group, click Create, and now it's in the list. I'll select that, scroll to the bottom, and click Save and Continue. So from here you'll see the default, and notice there are two entries here. There's the form itself, subscribe form, here, and there's also the success message. This appears after the person actually fills in the form and clicks subscribe. They have similar formats. In fact, information entered on this editing panel will subsequently appear on the success message to ensure they have the same kind of branding. So I'm going to try to walk through some of the editing features. I'm going to go fairly quickly because this will be a video and you can stop and rewind and keep checking. But for those who already know some of this information, they don't need to see it all. First and foremost, default. You have different types of forms. Default horizontal is more compact. Card allows you to add an image. I'm going to stick with default and click Choose. Background. I prefer not to have any background interfering with my line of vision, so I'm just going to remove this completely, set it to white, and click Save. I'm not going to add any images here, although you most certainly can. This just makes it easier to see the form. So we're in the design area here. Before I do anything else, I'm going to jump to settings. In settings, you have some options to add. You can select a privacy policy entry. This will give you some default text, which you can edit. There's also confirmation checkbox that you can add, which you can also edit. There's a reference for hidden segments. I'm not going to talk about segments at this point, just talk about the forms, but this does allow you to modify even further and categorize the groups that you have subscribed. Let's look at the GDPR field. This has a lot of information primarily to do with marketing. I will not attempt to give you legal advice. You'll need to do your own research and decide how much or how little information you need to include on your form. There's also interest groups. If you wanted to allow your users to decide what group they should be in, you could use this. I prefer to do my own categorization and not leave it up to my audience. Custom success page. If instead of this success message, you can set up a particular page, perhaps part of your website, where you want to direct people when they're done. And finally, reCAPTCHA. Everyone, in my opinion, should include reCAPTCHA. It's just safer. It's going to reduce annoying email and keep things more clean. So I'm going to keep that, and I'm going to add a privacy policy reference as well. And before I leave the screen, I'm going to modify this. This is the first entry we're modifying. The little pencil means you can edit. This text box is a typical editor for most text entries in the MailerLite editor. You can perform a lot of different modification here. You could bold something. You'll see it immediately appear on the left. You can change the size of font, the color. You can center it instead. See it again, is reflected right away. I'm going to leave that left aligned. The one thing that I want to show you right now is you can add links. So I'm going to make a copy of my privacy policy link, and I'm going to select the text for which I want that link to appear. Click on link, insert link, paste the link. I want it to open in a new tab so it doesn't interfere with the form they're filling out. Say insert. And now you'll see we have a link on the left. Save. Let's go back to design. So in design, I want to first of all do some modification. In the heading, I'll change this to subscription form. I'll leave that text in there. Again, you can see a similar text box that you've already seen. We'll save that. Now I want to modify that field. So in the form, we can perform some editing. I'm going to change this background to, actually I've chosen a color already. I'm going to save that. And now let me just show you it has mimicked that formatting on the success message. So it keeps you on brand, which is really nice. If I wanted to, I could change the layout. I could make it full width, which I don't generally like. I can make it a little wider if I wanted to. I could add a border. 0 in the border field indicates there isn't any border. If I make that 5 and click off somewhere, I'll see the border. I'm going to make the border black. Radius is all about your edges, the corners. Are they rounded or square? 0 would be square. A higher number is going to be more round. So let's leave it at more round and save. Let's look at the styling. If you hover over this, it will tell you it's heading 1. If you hover over this entry, it tells you it's text. This will tell you it's sign up. This tells you privacy statement. So it gives you some pointers as you hover. So let's say I want my heading, which we know is this, to be larger. I'm going to leave it in black, but I want larger font, and I'll make it bold. I'll leave the font the way it is, and I'll center it. You can do similar things for the text, but you can also modify the link color. Before I do that, let's add a link. And I'll just put the privacy policy back in here since I already had that link ready. We'll pop that in here. Again, I'll have it open in a new tab. Save. So now if I go back and I change the link color, let's make it a really strong blue. So on the right-hand side, you have a color strip. You select the general range of color, and then you click on the square to choose the shade of that coloring. And now we have our link. I'll make it a little larger again. That applies to all the text in that field. I will leave it left justified. Now we're on to form elements. This is a little bit more interesting. Let's look at input. Actually, before I do that, let's pop in and modify this. There's some interesting elements here. So you see a slightly different display now. The form fields. Email is both the name of the field, or rather the label for the field, And it could also be what's appearing in the field as guidance, directions. Let's edit that. The pencil allows us to edit. You see, we don't have a lot of options for email because MailerLite has designated that a required field, which is actually good for you. Let's add another field. Now, it doesn't have to be name. We could choose something else from the edit. Drop down field, we can select something else, but I do want to keep name, so we'll choose that. Now, here's the label entry. So I'm going to say, enter your name here. Is the field required? No, I could make it required, but I'm not going to. You have other types of fields. You could do drop downs, you could do radio buttons, check boxes, etc. I'll let you play with all of those on your own. We'll leave this as input. Now you also have the choice to show these labels, the labels that we designated inside, as inputs, or rather show these labels above the inputs, which would make them field names. So let's show you that. So now instead of having email in the field or enter your name here in the field, it's above the field. I don't really like that. I'm going to put it back. We can also move these fields. I'm going to put name before email and save. You have a lot of options there. But now when we come down to form elements and I look at input, background is the background of the field, so white in this case. We could change that. Do a pale gray, which is not nearly as pleasant, but for the purposes of showing you how it works, that's fine. We can leave the color as is, make it a little bit smaller. Again, choose font, and you have the option for borders around the fields as well, same as we had before. Again, the radius is all about rounded or square edges and the border color. I'm going to leave it the way it is. That looks fine. Label. So if we had chosen to leave the labels above the fields, we would have been able to modify the fonts, the coloring, even the style as well. I've kept them inside, so modifying anything in this dialog won't change what you're seeing. Confirmation privacy. So that is this element. Let's look at what we have. Let's just try font color, or pardon me, font size. I actually like it in the smaller text. I'll leave that the way it is. And then finally we have button. So again, a lot of what you want to do here is use the same branding, the same coloring from your website on your form so that it follows a pattern. You're consistent in what you display. What should we do for a button? Let's make it a bright red button. Now hover. If I hover over this button, you see it changes color, which is really nice to let people know that the screen is responding to them. I'll leave that color the way it is. I'll also leave the font white because it shows up well in both colors. I'll make it a larger font. Keep it bold, slightly rounded edges. Perfect. So that's our form. Let's take a peek at our success message. Lovely. You can edit these elements as well. So you could tune this even more. Something like that. You can change the information here. One thing I do recommend here is that you are clear with next steps for your subscribers. So for example, this form, you have the option of specifying double opt-in. Double opt-in means when they subscribe, they're not actually truly subscribed yet. Instead, they'll receive another email to the email they used when they signed up, and they'll have to click on that confirmation button so we know that email is a live person. Only then will they truly be subscribed. So that's something you want to mention on your thank you. So something like this, make it a little more pretty. Maybe we change the text color here. I'll choose a red. Maybe we bold it. Maybe you even add some email links in here. I might insert a row for more spacing. Make sure they understand what to do next. So now we'll say save. So we have the subscribe form, we have the success message that will tell them thank you so they know something happened, and make sure they know to go to their email and click on confirm. You probably even want to add some information here about whitelisting the email address, our email address. Whitelist as in make sure it doesn't go to the junk folder or promotions folder if it's Gmail. Any information that will help them understand next steps and confirm. Now we click next. And now our form is done, the form itself. We're back on the page for the form. So this is specific to the form we just created. You'll notice double opt-in is specified here. From the design section, if you clicked on edit, you could go back and modify the format. Or we can just click on preview and see how it looks. Cute. Remember, we have a subscribe to groups section here. This tells us which group they will be assigned to when they subscribe. And there's also a little URL here. Watch what happens here. If we copy this URL, go to a new tab, paste the URL, you get to see the form. Not exactly live, but you get to see how the form's going to look. Sweet. Before we go further, there is one more step you need to do, and the double opt-in. If you've selected it, and I do recommend you select it, then you need to send them an email where they have to click on a button to confirm their email. And that's what these are for, the double opt-in email and the double opt-in thank you page. Because after they click confirm, you want to thank them for doing that. So you go to your double opt-in email. And now you're going to modify 3 different areas. First, the subject. You can edit this. Straightforward edit. You can also modify the sender, similar fashion, name of the sender and the sender email. Most important, you want to modify the email they receive. So we're going to click on edit. Here we are in the editor for the double opt-in email. When you registered, you had to enter your name, your address, a few other things. That was for legal reasons. MailerLite requires you, as most email service providers do, they require you to include your company information and address in the footer of the email. And you can see it's pulled that in. So you don't have to do that manually. That's done for you based on the information when you registered, which you can update if there are changes. We need to update the email itself. This is very similar to creating a form, but there are some differences. On the right, we have blocks and settings. Let's look at our settings. There are actually 3 sections here: template settings, content settings, and button settings. Our template settings give you the opportunity to modify your font overall. And then we can go through, and just like we did previously, you have options for color changes for the background, also for the pre-header. The pre-header is up here. This is this little snippet that appears when you hover over an email you've received. You can also modify the coloring for the company name information down here, and of course company details. So you have some choices for that. Let's look at content settings. So this is all about blocks style. So content, again, border or not. If we hide the border, see now it's just the color, different things like that. So very similar to what we looked at before. Title, again, nothing too surprising here. I just want to make sure that you've seen all of these. Link would be, of course, something clickable. And then let's look at button settings. These are a little bit different. So for button style, you'll notice this one has a little bit of a shadow underneath. So that's actually this style. If we changed it to this, you'll notice there's no more shadow there. If we changed it to this one, this gives you the frame, the full border. I prefer this one. Now again, for the design, you choose the coloring. Maybe we make this a red button. So let's assume our site was red and we're trying to match the branding. Again, you can add radius, curvature instead of a square as well. Now here's something we haven't seen before, vertical spacing. So within the button, if you increase the vertical spacing, it gives your text more room. All right, so that's handy when you want the text to stand out more. Now let's go back to blocks. So these are the blocks that contributed to this default entry. We can modify this. First of all, we can modify the pre-header. Notice they have a variable name entered here. So MailerLite has default fields that are available on setup, and you can add your own custom fields as well. You can subsequently access those fields by their variable name. Variables are denoted by the curly braces on either side and the dollar prefix. So that is a variable name. In this case, it's a variable for the field called name. So when you created the form, there was actually a field where you could enter your name. If they entered their name, then you want to take advantage of that and use that in the form to personalize it more. There's also a design section here where you could modify, again, fonts, text, fonts and style rather. I don't need to modify anything there. We'll leave that as is. You can modify the hello. You could also delete that if you don't like it. You can even copy this field if you want to add more information. A lot of options here. Fairly straightforward editor once you've seen the things a few times. Now in this case, you'll see in between the curly braces and the dollar sign, we have email. Email is just what you would expect it to be. It's the email address they entered when they subscribed. So the text, the default text for this form is really just fine. You could add more if you wanted to, but generally people don't spend a lot of time looking at that confirmation email. They just want to know where's the button. I do want to edit the button though to show you. There is another design area here that expands more than on the other settings field. So this one, you still have button styles. See how it has that border there? But now you can also modify alignment. You can say little button on the left, little button in the middle, little button on the right, or one big button. Again, you can go for fonts and colorings here as well. And spacing. So down here, vertical spacing is within the button. This spacing is, top spacing is before the element you're editing. We're editing the button, so top spacing is this stuff in between. Bottom spacing is after the button. So if I increase top spacing, there should be more space in between the text and the button. And there you go. So you want to play with that, modify it, make it look the way you want it to. You can do the same thing with the divider down here. Again, you have more spacing. We can decrease it, less space, increase it, more space. You have a lot of control here. Make the border thicker, a lot of options. The one thing you do not want to change is the hyperlink for here. That link is specific to a reporting body, and you want to leave that the way it is. So really, most of the information in the email, I would say leave it the way it is, but format it for your branding, and potentially, you could add some different flavor to the text to make it your own, but these elements you want to keep there. Now we say next. And now you want to do the same thing for your double opt-in thank you page. So after they click, confirm your email or whatever text you apply to your button, they're going to receive a thank you. You have a choice here. You can edit this pop-up, change the texting here. You can add colors by using the edit field here, just like we did previously. Actually, let me pop in quickly and show you. Again, MailerLite will add the default footer information based on your account settings. That's regulatory, so they will add that. But you can modify the text here and some of the coloring as well, same as we had before. Go back to blocks, we modify this. You have spacing as well you can modify, just like we did with the double opt-in email. But you have another choice. You don't have to have the thank you notification. Instead, down at the bottom here, you can apply your own URL. So for example, if you set up a location on your website that provides a really nice thank you, perhaps you give more information about your company, what you offer, things like that, help people get a feel for who you are and what you do, you can enter that URL here. And MailerLite will redirect people. Instead of a thank you after they confirm email, they'll get redirected to the page you chose. So that's a really nice feature. In fact, that's what I do. I don't use the bland thank you. So there you have it. That's how you set up a form. I'm going to create a different video tutorial for what to do with this form, how to get the form onto your site.